don't think he recording anymore.
Okay, no.
So you said you were mistaken for marchers and you had to hide?
Yeah, we were doing one with civil rights marches. I think it was the march to Selma. And so all the different communities where the marches would have passed through, the people in those communities, the white people in those communities were out attacking anybody who was black. And we were on a bus. We used to go down on what was called the harvest. They didn't have machines to pick fruit and stuff, so my grandmother, she would take people to make extra money in the summer, and so we would ride the bus with her. So they thought we were freedom riders when they saw the bus. And our bus was attacked. We were children, and we were told to get under the seat. And, I mean, we were really afraid. They rocked the bus, and they were throwing stuff at the bus. I can't even remember how we managed to get out of it. But we always talk about how we had to, my grandmother put us down between the seats, and she put pillows and blankets over us so that if they came up on the bus, they wouldn't see us. That was one thing. And here in Hammond, it was segregated.
How old were you when that happened?
I guess I was about 8, 9, something like that. It wasn't long. It might have been a little younger, maybe 7, I don't know. Here in Hammond, as I started getting older, it was after they passed the laws. Like, they passed segregation laws for the schools, but they hadn't actually passed laws where you couldn't discriminate against people in restaurants and public places and all that. So we couldn't go in the same places that where actually the public places we could, but they had to separate it. Like if you went to the theater, the black sat in one section and the white, and we used to sit at the top. They made us sit at the top. We sit up there and throw ice down on the people sitting at the bottom, just being kids. There was a restaurant, the main little restaurant in downtown Hammond was called a Fountain, and you could buy food from them, but you couldn't come around through the front door. There was a back door where you could go around and order your food and pick it up. And let's see, the schools were segregated. I think I was in the 4th grade when they segregated schools. It was after the laws had been written, but after their laws were written, it still in the South was another maybe 6, 7 years before they actually started. They had maybe 1 or 2 whites they would go, but actually being forced, the laws being enforced where, you know, the students, that was well, in Louisiana in the South, that was well after the law was made. So they still were fighting. That's why you got like Ruby Bridges and all that. They still had to send troops in for for those black students to go to school. And one of the groups I used to teach about what's called a Little Rock Nine. You ever heard of them?
Yes, ma'am.
And they had to be ushered into the school and all that. So I was around, maybe a little younger around that period. But like I said, when you got in this deep South, it was really, really segregated. Actually, I can only count maybe about, until I made it until high school, maybe about 4 or 5 whites that actually went to school with us. And that's what happened was, once they started to enforce segregation, the whites started opening up like these Catholic schools, like Holy Ghost. They had a private school out here where Harvest Church is. I forgot the name of it. But that's one of the first things they did. They opened up that private school out there. And I guess then when they kicked in with Holy Ghost and those other Catholic schools, they were all a way to keep those kids in school, but keep them from interacting with us. So yeah, it was kind of rough.
So you weren't allowed to socialize with any of the white children?
Yeah, the ones that went to school with us, we socialized, and usually the only reason they were there is because they were very poor. So, you know, they kind of lived like us. They were kind of ostracized too, because they were not, you know, the thing, I guess.
Part of the upper class.
Yeah, Yeah, because they got their own social system going on, along with the fact that there was racism and all that. So we had some whites that went to school with us, and we got along good with them. When we got to Hammond High, we had at least 3 riots from my 8th grade year to my 11th grade year. And at that time, it was mostly initiated by the black students. It was. I think one incident was some white boys had beat a black boy, and then there was a riot at the school behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember. I know we had 2 others, but I can't remember. That one I remember because the black boy was like the star of the football team and all that. And I guess jealousy. I don't know but they caught him somewhere and beat him up. And so we had a riot at school for that. And I was in I was during the Black Panther. You know the movie Black Panther? Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of the stuff that not the movie, but the comic book that came before the movie, all that kind of rose up out of the idea of the Black Panther. They wanted a black national, superhero, and you had the Black Panther going on then, and so he kind of that Black Panther was not so much connected like what you see in the movie with Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But he was kind of like a name for that movement. Now the Black Panther movement, that's the time when we started wearing
all black.
We was wearing dashikis and afros. We was throwing a power sign, Black Power, and a lot of good music came out. Like there was James Brown who made "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud." Mm-hmm. So it was like a good time after the Civil Rights movement. You had Martin Luther King. They were. He was preaching like nonviolent change, the marches and all that. Then you had the Black Panther who was like, by any means necessary. They were kind of like Malcolm X kind of thinkers. And so the music came out that went along with that thinking. Mm-hmm. So we had Marvin Gaye making songs about, how you treating us, and Curtis Mayfield. I was just listening to one the other day talking about them building projects and stuff, and creating that ghetto mentality for black folks. But like I said, during the time, I was at the end of King and the beginning of that movement. So that was kind of like the Black Panther movement, and it was a good, you feel good about being black, and I see a lot of that now coming back, mm-hmm. where young people feel good about being black. And as a teacher, I feel this big disconnect from this generation that's coming up and from my generation. It's like we kind of the last ones, and everybody's kind of assimilating. Like everybody want to be part of this bigger culture. But during our time, it was just like, you built your own. We had our own little unique culture. And as a matter of fact, that was the time when white people started really listening to our music. It was the cool thing to be part of our culture, mm-hmm. And
it still is.
It
still is.
Yeah. But that's what I see. I see it coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But an argument, when I discuss with these older students, the argument is, oh, that stuff is old, and I always tell them that everything that happened with those people was so that you could say what you're saying now. You're walking on somebody's back. And really, that's one of the reasons that I became a teacher. I was a high school dropout. I mean, we was in, like I said, we was in that Black Power thing and fighting and militant and all that. But I went back to school and went on to college. So, I know how critical it is. That's why I decided to teach, because I know how critical it is. And maybe, just maybe, I could say something that's going to impact or, bring a little history to these young people.
I just wanted to let you know you was on my mind.
All right. That's my nephew. Yeah, so that's kind of a story. You got any more questions?
If you could go back and change anything that you've experienced, what would you change?
If I could go back and change anything that I've experienced, if I could go back and change anything that I've experienced, it would probably be to try to keep. I go back to my grandfather's time and stuff, and just the idea of family. I would probably change giving out welfare and all that kind of stuff. I would probably change those help programs like that. Because before then, when I was little, it was rural and we lived out in the country, and you helped raise your own food, and everybody that knew you, all my teachers knew my mother. All my teachers. And once I got out into that world where I didn't have that small community, then that's when my problems started. Because when I came up, if you was down the street playing and you did something wrong, then the neighbor with you, you come home, your mama with you. That's not, when you hear people telling you that story, that's not a lie. That's the way it was. It was the village. And I would want black people to keep more of that village mentality. I wouldn't want them to be so quick to jump out wanting to be into the. I know that if we go to the schools that are created by the government out there, I know we get more opportunities. So this is a time we're in of opportunity. But back then, opportunity meant building land and buying land for your family and being that family bond. So I think that's lost a lot in a lot of places. You have to go, like I say, out in the country somewhere to find it, because you're not going to find it in these places. That goes back to me saying that I think a lot of our students, our children have assimilated. I mean, they ain't worried about it. They wanted the next phone, the next shoes, the next, and back then when my grandfather, he worked, he showed my uncles how to work, and they went into the business that he went into. And, it was kind of keep it in the family. So I guess I would, if I could change anything, I would change us getting out so fast and getting into their world. Like I would have rather we kept our schools. I'd rather we had built our own wealth than, I tell my son all the time, well, I hate the white people. I said, but you get up, you go pay the white man a note on your car, you go pay, you buy shoes that the white man. So, yeah, I would probably change us being able to assimilate. Some of those laws that they wrote that gave out those programs and put us in places.
Were you ever envious of some of the white children growing up?
I wasn't envious of the white children because I wasn't around white children until I got to like the high school. And when I became an adult and started having my own children, then I was envious. I wished I had done differently so that I started working with more white people, and I got to see how their children's lives were versus my children's life. So
was there a difference?
Oh yeah, there was a difference, but now I just fortunately went to work with a good group of women. We were teacher aides. And so we all worked in one big room, and on our breaks, we talked about our lives. And there were at least 3 of the ladies had at least 3 children. I had 4. So there were similarities and there were differences. But I was I'm inquisitive, so I would ask, well, like one of them, she had 2 sons in college, and I was like, well, what made them go to college? What did you do? She wasn't rich, but what was it that made your sons go to college? But then on the other hand, we shared food. They wanted to know about how we made chicken and dumplings and how we fried chicken and that kind of stuff. So, like I said, that when I saw their resources, then I wanted to do better, which is what made me go to school. And I knew that I was able to give my children more exposure to things. We travel. I learned all that from them. camping, traveling to places to see things.